Welcome, everyone. Bienvenidos a todos, and thank you so much for being here today. Today's presentation is titled Parenting with Pride, Advocating for Your LGBTQ+ Child. We would like to begin by sharing a sincere thank you. We are thankful for each and every one of you who is here, being a proud parent or a supportive family member of your child. We also want to thank those of you who may feel unsure, confused, or are struggling with trying to support your child at this moment. This is a process, and we're here for all families. Right now in Florida and across the nation, our lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer or questioning students and families face surmounting obstacles and have growing fear regarding our schools and their children's safety. Parents and families have been reaching out with questions regarding how to best support their child in the face of these obstacles. Some families have decided to leave Florida, fearful that their children will not be able to grow, learn, and be supported for who they are. Other families have made the decision to stay and fight for their rights and the rights of their children, which is no easy task in today's day and age. We hope that you leave this training with a sense of understanding of what it means if your child says that they are LGBTQ+, how to support your child, and the resources that are available to your family. So let's go. We will be your co-trainers today. My name is Ez Rodriguez, and my pronouns are they, them in English, y uso ellas en español, and I'm happy to be here today to speak with all of you who are parents and family members of LGBTQ+ children. I'm the Safe and Healthy Schools Senior Manager for Equality Florida. I've taught in higher education and bring over 2 decades of diversity, equity, and inclusion training and community work experience to my current position. I'm also Vice President of Legislation and Policy for our newly chartered Kaleidoscope PTA here in Florida, and a certified national trainer with the Human Rights Campaign's Welcoming Schools program. And now I'm going to throw it to my co-trainer.
Thanks, Ez. My name is Jennifer Solomon, and my pronouns are she, her. I am the proud parent to 4 amazing kiddos, 2 who identify in the LGBTQ+ community. I started my journey as a parent advocate by being a strong voice to make sure my kids were in safe and affirming environments. I am the founder and president of PFLAG Miami, appointed member of HRC's Parents for Transgender Equality Council, and LGBTQ chair for Miami-Dade Council of PTA-PTSA. Now, as Equality Florida's Parents and Family Support Manager, I'm working to make sure that you, the parents and families, have the tools and resources to support your child. My role is to make sure you feel empowered to speak proudly and confidently about your family. As parents and caregivers, you often don't have control over your kids' experiences once they leave your home, but you do have the right to seek out safe and supportive spaces for them when they're not in your immediate care. Today, the goal is to make sure that all of you leave this webinar with a clearer understanding of how to best support your child at home, at school, and in the community, given this incredibly challenging environment. We will also discuss strategies that help foster accepting behaviors in parents and family. Then we will discuss the therapeutic process so that you have more clarity around mental health support for your child. And finally, we will share resources to help get you plugged into a community of parents and allies in a variety of ways. Today's training is being filmed in July of 2023. Please be aware there may be new rules or laws passed since the filming of this training.
Before we begin, we would like to share that this presentation is in alignment with approved resolutions put forth by the National Parent-Teacher Association and the Florida Parent-Teacher Association that states just how important it is to be affirming of LGBTQ+ children. All families look differently, they show up differently, and they have unique needs. The slogan of the PTA is "Every child, one voice." We know that LGBTQ+ youth are bullied and harassed at higher rates than their non-LGBTQ+ counterparts, which leads to depression, lower self-esteem, and in many cases, self-harm. PTA sees this as unacceptable and is dedicated to offering preventative measures to protect children from these negative physical, mental, and emotional health outcomes. Families are the first pillar of stability for children, and most families want to keep their kids safe at home, at school, and in their communities. When we talk about keeping LGBTQ+ kids safe, that actually translates to keeping all children safe. A great place to start is often thinking about our own childhood days. Think about your own experiences participating in clubs, sports, communities of faith, and attending school. Did the adults see and respect you for all of who you were or are? What did you need to succeed? Did you receive it? We know how life-changing a positive community or school experience can be. For the youth in our schools, it's not just about test scores or grades. In fact, as we know, higher academic achievement is in many ways contingent upon the environment in which children learn. If students don't feel safe, they won't be ready to learn. And when students are healthy and well, they tend to perform better. Throughout this webinar, we will be discussing how you, as a parent, can work with your child's school to ensure that your child is afforded a safe and welcoming learning environment. Now let's dive in. Terminology is always a helpful place to start so that we can ensure a basic understanding of words, phrases, and ideas relating to lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender, and queer or questioning people and their experiences. It's important to keep in mind that language is constantly evolving. You might have heard a word used in the past as a slur, such as the word queer. And now some younger people have reclaimed that word as a positive term of self-identification. Some of your kids may even describe themselves as queer. Over time, new terms are introduced while others fade from use or change entirely. We're starting with terminology so that you are more comfortable in speaking with your child when a conversation arises. Just so that everyone is on the same page when it comes to definitions, let's explore the concepts of sexual orientation, gender identity, and gender expression. As we proceed, keep in mind that while some people don't like the idea of labels at all, other people feel really comfortable with certain labels and not others. It's up to the individual to decide how they want to label themselves, if at all. Sexual orientation is oftentimes simply defined as who you love and who you want to love you back. It is an emotional, romantic, or physical attraction to other people, and it's completely independent of gender identity or gender expression. There are many identities associated with sexual orientation. People who are attracted to a different gender, for example, women who are attracted to men or men who are attracted to women, may call themselves straight or heterosexual. People who are attracted to people of the same gender may call themselves gay or lesbian. People who are attracted to more than one gender may call themselves bisexual, and people who are attracted to people of any gender may call themselves pansexual. Now let's talk about gender identity. The Human Rights Campaign defines gender identity as one's innermost concept of self as male, female, a blend of both, or neither. It's how individuals perceive themselves and what they call themselves. Transgender is a term for people whose gender identity differs from the sex that was written on their birth certificate. So, for example, a person is born, and based on their external anatomy, the doctor, midwife, or medical professional declares them a boy. However, as they grow older, they feel like their innermost self is not a boy. In this example, this individual may identify as transgender. You may have also heard of the term non-binary. In simple terms, a non-binary person is someone who doesn't identify as exclusively man or woman. Someone who is non-binary might feel like a mix of genders or like that they have no gender at all. While many people who identify as non-binary may also identify as transgender, not all non-binary people do. If this is something totally new for you, that's perfectly okay. That's why we're here, to learn and grow with each other. Even if this terminology is confusing or if you still have a lot of questions, it's important to remember that regardless of your child's gender identity, in order to grow up healthy, your child needs to know that you fully love and support them, even if you're on your own path to understanding them. Cisgender is a term for people whose gender identity matches the sex that was written on their birth certificate. So, for example, when my brother was born, the doctor looked at his external anatomy and determined he was a boy. His innermost concept of self as male matches with what is listed on his birth certificate, and therefore he is cisgender. Many of us may not be familiar with this term, but using the word cisgender allows us to understand that everyone has a gender identity. The idea that people are cisgender shows that no matter who you are, the relationship between your body and your sense of self is unique. And as our understanding of gender continues to change, the words we have to describe our experiences also evolve.
Sometimes people ask, how does a parent know if their child is transgender? Could it just be a phase of childhood exploration or curiosity? A 2015 study published by the Association for Psychological Science shows that transgender youth identify their gender as clearly and consistently as their developmentally matched peers. While this has been the model for many years, and we do still refer to this rubric, some transgender children may not fit into all of these categories. For intents and purposes, transgender kids are oftentimes consistent. They don't go back and forth about their innermost concept of self. Insistent, they feel very strongly about their identity and get upset when they're told they're not the identity they say they are. Or persistent, how they identify themselves stays constant over time. It is important to note that you don't make your children cisgender or transgender, and you can't change this aspect of your child's identity. This is also not a choice children make. Gender identity is a central part of a child's identity and well-being. Let's talk a bit about different types of care that supports trans, non-binary, and gender-expansive youth. A lot of times when people hear about transgender youth, the term transitioning is used. This graphic talks about 3 types of transitioning. Social transitioning usually refers to a personal change an individual undergoes in their life. A social transition is usually the first and sometimes only form of transition youth experience before puberty. It is safe and reversible, and it is important to note that a study published in May 2022 in the Journal of Pediatrics found that almost 95% of children who already had been living as their authentic gender for more than a year continue to identify as transgender 5 years later. Social transitioning may involve dressing in a more affirming style, choosing a different haircut, or using facilities that suit a person's gender identity more accurately. Often, the use of a new name and/or pronoun is linked to social transitioning too. The majority of school-age youth who are transgender or non-binary are navigating social transitions, not necessarily legal or medical transitioning. Medical transitioning usually refers to physical changes a trans person undergoes through the assistance and support of mental health and medical care providers, such as a psychologist and doctor. For school-age trans youth, active support from you, as parents or guardian, is required to navigate the medical transitioning process, oftentimes known as gender-affirming medical care. All major medical and mental health organizations support gender-affirming care. According to the American Academy of Pediatrics, gender-affirming medical care is best facilitated through the integration of medical, mental health, and social services, including resources and support for parents and families. This type of care destigmatizes being trans or non-binary. It promotes a child's self-worth, facilitates access to care, educates families, and advocates for community spaces where children are free to mature and develop safely. NAMI, the National Alliance on Mental Health, also has strong statements of support for LGBTQ+ youth and mental health. In Florida, there have been ongoing changes that impact a family's ability to access gender-affirming medical care. There have also been legal challenges to this legislation. These resulting decisions have created confusion for many families around access to gender-affirming medical care. If you are trying to start the process of seeking gender-affirming medical care for your child, first speak to your pediatrician to see what is possible. It is important to note that accessing mental health resources and support has not been impacted or restricted by any current Florida law or legislation. Legal transitioning usually refers to steps a trans person undergoes in their life for their legal identity or right to be aligned with their gender identity, such as changing a birth certificate, passport, or driver's license. For school-age trans youth, active support from you, their parents or guardians, is required to navigate the legal transitioning process. In Florida, transgender youth, with the support of their parents, are still able to update their name and gender marker on their birth certificate, driver's license, and passport to accurately reflect their gender identity. Under FERPA, once the process has taken place to update any of these government documents, parents or students of a legal age are able to request that their school correct records identified as being inaccurate misleading, or in violation of the student's privacy because they have a name or gender marker that is no longer legally accurate. Now that you know the 3 forms of transitioning, we want to again reiterate social transitioning. Research shows that allowing transgender children to socially transition, which is, again, to change their clothing, style, hair, name, pronouns, etc., virtually eliminates higher rates of depression and low self-worth. Again, social transitioning is safe, reversible, and allows children the space to grow into who they are as a person and makes them feel affirmed by their family and friends. So imagine yourself going to work every day and having to wear ill-fitted clothing and shoes. I imagine it would be hard for any of you to concentrate on your jobs or to form friendships with your peers. You might be highly aware of how uncomfortable you felt at nearly every minute of the day. Imagine your colleagues did not call you by your correct name. After some time and without remedy, this may lead you to feeling sad or anxious and possibly low self-worth. This is how trans kids feel when they are unable to move about as themselves and be respected in the world. There is one last definition we want to share with you all, and that is the term gender expression. While gender identity is an internal experience, gender expression involves the external appearance of someone's gender, usually expressed through behavior, clothing, body characteristics, or voice, which may or may not conform to what is typically associated with being either masculine or feminine. Transgender youth will oftentimes, if able, strive to express themselves in a manner that is aligned with their gender identity. Gender nonconformity is simply when someone's expression does not conform to gender-based stereotypes. As children grow, they may show a gender nonconforming expression through play or clothing. For example, girls may want to play with trucks, and some boys may want to play with dolls. They may wear clothing that is more typical of another gender, or dress in ways that are more androgynous. This is normal part of gender development, and gender nonconforming behaviors and gender expression do not have implications on a young person's future sexual orientation or gender identity. In other terms, a girl playing with trucks or a boy wanting to wear a dress, a student wearing nail polish, and so on, does not result in or impact whether or not that child is LGBTQ+. It is important to note, however, that nonconforming expression and behavior is connected to bullying and harassment. As early as pre-K, stereotypes start to emerge and gender segregation often begins. Children who don't follow expected gender expectations can begin to feel isolated. For example, if a girl decides she likes Superman and trucks over Barbies and princesses, other children who have picked up on biases from adults may question her and not allow her to play with these toys, as some see them as only boy toys. A person's gender expression is not related to gender identity or sexual orientation, and it is best practice not to make assumptions about someone's gender or sexual orientation based upon their gender expression. While a child's gender expression can be influenced by exposure to stereotypes and their identification with people in their lives, their internal sense of gender identity cannot be changed.
Now that we have talked about definitions and the basics, let's look at what we know about our Florida high school students. The YRBS, or the Youth Risk Behavior Survey, is a survey given to 9th through 12th graders across the state and is in coordination between the Centers for Disease Control, Florida Department of Education, and Florida Department of Health. The survey provides Florida school districts and their community partners with data that identifies the most critical issues and needs of Florida's high school students. According to the YRBS for the year 2021, 24.9% of Florida high school students identified as lesbian, gay, bisexual, or unsure of their sexual orientation. And 1.7% of Florida high school students identified themselves as transgender. This means that in the state of Florida, there are approximately 218,000 LGBT high school students and 15,000 transgender high school students. We also know that these numbers are likely an underestimate as they only reflect students who are willing to self-identify on the survey. Some students may not feel safe to disclose this information about themselves. Nonetheless, we are seeing that youth have a strong sense of their sexual orientation and gender identity and are coming out more often and earlier. It's also important to highlight that LGBTQ plus youth are not inherently prone to higher depression, anxiety, or suicidality. Rather, social stigma and discrimination, rejection from parents, family, peers, community, and places of worship, unsafe schools, lack of understanding, and prejudice are associated with changes in mood, anxiety, substance abuse disorders, suicidal behavior, homelessness, and physical or sexual violence. It's society that causes LGBTQ youth to be at a higher risk for negative physical and mental health outcomes, and we must combat that head on.
Okay, now let's shift to some concepts that will help support you, our parents and family, who are on your unique journey with your kids. In order to best support your children, you need to support yourself too. So, how do we support our families? Family plays an important role in the self esteem of any child, and receiving support from families is integral to the positive physical, mental, and emotional health of LGBTQ plus youth. A family's journey towards acceptance will look different for all families, and there are things that you can do to make sure that your children are safe and protected. Many times, a family begins to need support after a young person starts to come out. Coming out is a process and may span many years or a lifetime, and typically occurs in stages for any individual, as well as for the people who love them. The person who is choosing to share this sensitive aspect of their identity might have thought about it for a long time. This personal process of letting loved ones in may be empowering for some and overwhelming for others. Youth will need comfort and acceptance. However, because of where their loved ones are in their own process, this may not be the immediate reaction from the people closest to them. Families experience their own journey towards acceptance, and this can look different depending on culture, religious beliefs, and knowledge related to the LGBTQ plus community, etc.
When youth do share this deeply personal and sensitive information, you may feel a range of reactions, and it's important to prepare for this. An in-depth study of LGBTQ plus adolescents and families found that family reactions to their LGBTQ plus children were much more varied and hopeful than had been previously assumed. Rather than a uniform rejection, a proportion of families respond with acceptance, and most will feel somewhat ambivalent. Some ambivalent behaviors are fluctuating between being accepting and rejecting, creating punishments around a child's LGBTQ plus identity. So for example, if you don't get an A in science class, you cannot wear your dress and makeup. Or calling a child their affirmed name in private and at home, but not using their affirmed name in public or with others. Some of you may have felt or are still feeling some resistance or confusion around your child's coming out. You may have even engaged in some rejecting behaviors, such as excluding your child from family and friends and activities, blocking access to your child's LGBTQ plus friends, events, and resources, blaming your child when they're bullied because of their identity, pressuring your child to be more or less masculine or feminine. The good news is that if you are still struggling, we know that families become less rejecting over time, and access to accurate information may help you to support your children. We know that the majority of parents and families, even when they are angry, scared, or confused, want to help their children, but many do not know how. So it's critical that you build skills to help support this process, and this process will look different for everyone. Families that engage in an accepting manner, although affirming, will still require support, just in a different way. It's important to know your rights. Oftentimes, you might require help when accessing accommodations and services at your child's school or having conversations with their teacher. You may not know who to go to or to what you are legally entitled. You have a right to be involved in critical decisions related to the upbringing and safety of your children, and educators should respect your requests when you're seeking to have your child respected and supported in the same manner that takes place at home. For families who are looking for more extensive ways to become involved, you can participate and assist in community advocacy efforts or build a network of support with other LGBTQ+ and allied families. If you're looking for opportunities to engage, please go to parentingwithprideflorida.org and let us know how you are wanting to engage.
The Family Acceptance Project is a research, education, and policy initiative to prevent health and mental health risks and to promote well-being for lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer identified children and youth. There is significant research from the Family Acceptance Project that found more than 50 family accepting behaviors that help protect LGBTQ youth against health risks like depression, suicide, and illegal drug use, and to help increase self-esteem, health, and well-being. LGBTQ plus young people who experience high rates of accepting behaviors from their families, when compared with LGBTQ plus young people who experience rejection from their family, had higher self-esteem, better family relationships, stronger social support, and significantly improved mental health outcomes. We have included here some of the accepting behaviors that parents and families can use to support their child's LGBTQ plus identity. They include telling your child you love them, requiring that other family members treat your child with respect, standing up for your child when others mistreat them because of their identity or gender expression, connecting your child with a role model to show them options for the future, and speaking openly about your child's identity. And there are many more. Engaging in accepting behaviors will help to ensure that your child is happy, healthy, and will thrive. Also of note is that the Family Acceptance Project materials are translated and available in English and in 10 other languages.
For our LGBTQ plus youth, we must be focused on their resiliency to ensure their health and well-being. One way to assist them in building resiliency is by helping them access mental health supports. This process can be confusing or scary for some families, not knowing whether a therapist is LGBTQ plus culturally competent or not understanding the therapeutic process in itself. Sometimes people feel shy or anxious around asking for mental health assistance due to cultural differences, or they may believe that asking for help means that there's something, quote, wrong with them or their child. Neither is true. Accessing mental health resources, therapy, or counseling services simply means that you're using every tool at your disposal to support your child. The next few slides will give you a brief overview of the therapeutic process and accessing mental health care with or for your child. Historically, there has been some stigma around accessing mental health services or support. Some parents think that they have failed as a parent because their child is needing to talk with a therapist. They might think that anyone who wants therapy must be, quote, crazy, or that there is something wrong with them. They may think that they are paying a therapist just to talk to their child, or that there is nothing that can help the child emerge from their depression or anxiety. These are all misconceptions. Some considerations that you may not be aware of are: research indicates that suicide is the second leading cause of death among young people, with LGBTQ plus youth being 4 times more likely to seriously consider suicide, to make a plan for suicide, and to attempt suicide than their non-LGBTQ plus peers. For these youth, concerns about privacy violations and fear of being outed are significant considerations when accessing services. So we know that nearly half of LGBTQ plus youth who have wanted counseling from a mental health professional did not receive it. Some signs that may suggest that your child needs support or to speak with a counselor may be that their grades are sinking quickly, that they become quiet and withdrawn from family and friends, or they're depressed or anxious at higher rates than their common moods. Counseling is an active and cooperative effort between your child and their counselor. Counseling may result in better emotional and mental health and positive changes in behaviors and coping abilities. In the counseling process, your child may share sensitive information. Sometimes there are periods of increased anxiety or confusion during the course of counseling, which can lead to heightened emotional distress for the child and the parent or family. The outcome of counseling is often positive. However, the level of satisfaction for any individual is not predictable. Finding an affirming therapist can be a process in itself. Oftentimes, local LGBTQ plus centers or nonprofits will have lists or other information about affirming therapists and counselors. Sometimes these organizations may offer free or reduced fee visits for LGBTQ plus children and families. If you have located a culturally competent therapist who is not covered under your insurance, you may inquire if there's a sliding scale fee for them. You may even be able to apply for reimbursement through your insurance company if you find a therapist who is out of network, although this depends on your coverage and is not guaranteed. And with therapy, it's never a one-size-fits-all experience. Make sure that you consider your child's comfort as well as your own with the therapist that you wind up choosing. One of the most important places where you can advocate for your child is at their school. Kids spend 8+ hours at school every day and participate in before school and after school activities as well. It's vital that you know what you can ask your school to do so that your child feels respected and protected when they go about their learning throughout the school day. One way to ensure that your transgender or non-binary child has access to a safe and affirming learning environment is to request a gender support plan. A gender support plan is an optional tool that you can ask for that's developed in partnership with you, your child, and the school's leadership. It's similar to developing a safety plan for your child. This helps to ensure that schools are in alignment with your request for how your child will be supported at school. A support plan may include questions such as, what is the student's affirmed name? Where are the single-stall designated restrooms on your campus that the student will use? Where will the student have access to changing facilities? If there are issues with bullying or harassment, who will the student speak with at the school? This document is a written educational record developed between you as the parent and the school. Therefore, it could only be able to be accessed by relevant school personnel and should be kept within your child's official records. A gender support plan is one way to ensure that your requests as a parent are honored. However, such a plan is not required for your child to receive accommodations. Each school district likely has a process or procedure in place to support families who are trying to ensure their child has a safe, welcoming, and affirming school experience. In Florida, there are a lot of questions around transgender students and what support they can receive at school. There are no laws that prevent you as a parent from asking your child's teachers and the staff who interact with your child to use their affirmed name and their affirmed pronouns at school. We encourage you to speak with your child's principal about this important and urgent request to ensure your child is respected in this way. You may request an affirmed name be entered into the student information system, similar to adding a nickname. This name would be able to populate on all unofficial school documents, even if you have not gone through the legal name change process. Unofficial school documents include, but are not limited to, class and substitute rosters, student ID badges, yearbooks, etc. Once your family has navigated the legal name change process, then all official documents would be able to be updated as well. For assistance with this process, you can contact your school's Student Services Department. And if you need additional assistance, you can contact us at Equality Florida, and we're happy to help.
No child, including yours, should be forced to use a restroom in which they do not feel safe. As a parent, we encourage you to speak with your child's principal to ask about where single-user restrooms are available for your child to access on their school campus. Many schools are working to increase the number of single-user restrooms on a school campus so that students have multiple options for facilities. Similarly, schools are being intentional not to create specific barriers to access these single-user restrooms, like special permission or needing a key. By advocating for your child, you can ensure that the school has safe and accessible facilities. Again, developing accommodations related to bathroom access may be recorded in a gender support plan or safety plan for your child. This information would also pertain to locker rooms or changing facilities at the school. Confidentiality and privacy are rights that every student and family may assert. You have the right to control who knows about your child's LGBTQ+ identity. The Family and Educational Rights and Privacy Act, FERPA, is a federal law that prohibits the disclosure of personally identifiable information and protects the privacy of student educational records in all schools that receive federal funding. A student's sexual orientation and gender identity are all protected personal information, the disclosure of which can constitute a violation of FERPA. Furthermore, FERPA mandates that schools must consider requests by parents to amend information in the student's educational record that is in violation of the student's privacy rights, which may include the student's gender marker or name. A student's sex assigned at birth is personal information, the disclosure of which would out the student and pose a risk to their health, safety, and well-being. There is legal precedence to support the constitutional right to privacy, and this includes keeping confidential information about their transgender identity. Parents or students who are of age 18 or older have the right to seek amendment to the student records under FERPA if their records are deemed inaccurate, misleading, or in violation of the student's privacy, such as the name or gender marker used throughout the record. Due to the disproportionately high levels of discrimination and violence trans people experience, inaccurate records could expose your child to harassment from peers, school staff, etc. So let us provide you with examples of what could be inaccurate, misleading, or in violation of your child's privacy. What is misleading? If a trans student uses a different name than what is on their birth certificate, but the school maintains the former records and identifies the student by the former name, this could be misleading. What is inaccurate? When a trans student has illegally changed their gender marker on official government documents, it can be inaccurate for the school to continue to utilize the previous gender marker on record. What violates a student's privacy? Students have the right to keep their trans status private. A teacher disclosing to other staff members about your child's transgender identity without your consent and without a legitimate educational purpose could be a violation of their privacy. If you feel that there is a violation of any of the above, you have a right to formally file a FERPA complaint for which your child's school should direct you to the information you need to proceed through this process.
No child should be harassed or bullied for any reason at school. We know that LGBTQ+ kids suffer higher rates of harassment and bullying due to their actual or perceived identities. Many students face bullying, harassment, and discrimination based on sex stereotypes and assumptions about what it means to be a boy or a girl. Students who are LGBTQ+ may face harassment based on how they dress or how they act, or for simply being who they are. It's important to know that discrimination against students based on their sexual orientation or gender identity is a form of sex discrimination prohibited by federal law. It's also important that these students feel safe and know what to do if they experience discrimination. If you believe your child has been treated unfairly, for example, treated differently, denied an educational opportunity, harassed, bullied, or retaliated against because of sexual orientation or gender identity, there are a number of actions that you can take. First, notify a teacher or school leader, for example, a principal or a school counselor, immediately. If you don't get the help that you need, file a formal complaint with the school or school district. Keep records of your complaints and responses that you receive. Second, write down the details about what happened, where and when the incident happened, who was involved, and the names of any witnesses. Do this for every incident of discrimination and keep copies of any related documents or other information. Third, if you're not proficient in English, you have the right to ask the school to translate or interpret information into a language that you better understand. If you have communication needs because of a disability, you have the right to receive accommodations or aids and services that provide you with effective communication. Additionally, consider counseling and other mental health supports that can sometimes be helpful for a student who has been harassed or bullied. Finally, depending on the solution from the school or school district, be prepared to elevate your concerns to additional individuals. We here at Equality Florida can also support you if there's not an appropriate resolution for your child. We will share our information at the end of our webinar. We've discussed so much in the way of how to support your family and your LGBTQ+ child. Now let's talk about some boots on the ground ways for you to get plugged in about advocacy opportunities with other families. Let's talk resources.
We are so excited to have partnered with PFLAG for this training. PFLAG was founded in 1973 and is the first and largest national organization dedicated to supporting, educating, and advocating for LGBTQ plus people and their families. They host monthly support groups and they partner with other support and family organizations in order to share resources and combat feelings of isolation that folks may feel when their child is coming out. If you are finishing this training and still feel like you wish there was a space to speak with other families or ask more questions, PFLAG is for you. So, who should attend a PFLAG meeting? Parents, aunts, uncles, grandparents, guardians, close family friends, and others are all welcome in this safe space. There's never a fee to attend a meeting, and this space provides a place to network, to learn from each other, and to share resources. What better way to find support than from another parent who has been on this journey with their child and can share valuable advice? PFLAG currently has 18 chapters across the state of Florida, which are listed here on the slide. To find out more information about your nearest chapter, check out pflag.org, pflag.org.
Another wonderful resource is Florida's Kaleidoscope PTA. KPTA was chartered in July of 2022 in response to PTA families who were and are in need of support and clarity around new state legislation that affects them and their children. KPTA is the first statewide at-large PTA that's dedicated to supporting LGBTQ+ and allied families. The mission is to advocate for safe, supportive, and respectful learning environments for all students. Florida is one of only 2 states in the country that has a statewide LGBTQ+ PTA, the other being New York State. We offer monthly webinars on a variety of topics, so be sure to come and check out the programming. So how do I join, you ask yourself? We hope that you'll seize this opportunity to take out your phones right now and scan the QR code that you see on this slide. From there, you'll be able to access our Member Hub. The Member Hub page is the way to join the KPTA. We have several additional pages that share our mission, parent testimonials, and information about resources and community partners. Please visit our Kaleidoscope Member Hub page for these additional resources and to join.
Another resource tool for learning how to best advocate for your child can be found on the Human Rights Campaign website. You can click on Parenting on their resource page, and you will see a plethora of articles, supports, resources, and opportunities for parents and families to learn more and to become involved. Finally, we want to take this chance to direct you to our Parenting with Pride program. The program's website is a statewide hub for parents to access resources, tools, or technical support. If you have had any questions during this webinar or are currently navigating a situation with your LGBTQ+ child, you may go to parentingwithprideflorida.org and share your concern. From there, you will hear from someone on the team to specifically address your needs and to connect you to resources. We will also have additional trainings, webinars, and resources posted on the website too. Our goal is to provide up-to-date information about issues affecting your child. Being educated about your rights and how to support your child will empower you to be the best advocate for your family. It has been our pleasure to share this space with all of you today. We hope that you have gained information, insight, and resources that will help empower and embolden you in your pursuit to support your LGBTQ+ child and to develop and lean on others for additional support who are members of the community and allies. We are living in an incredibly challenging time, and when we are armed with sound knowledge and fierce determination, we will move forward together. Remember that no matter where you are in your journey with your child and with your family, we are here to support you. Give yourself grace. Be patient and kind with yourself and never stop learning. Please feel free to email me, jennifer@equalityflorida.org, with any questions or concerns you may think of after we end our training. Now to you, Ez.
Thanks, Jen. We're so appreciative of all your time and attention today. Thanks for all that you do to care for and support your kids. We're here to support you, and we've got your backs.